What I'd like you to do is just, if you give your name and where you live and your wife, and would you mind telling us your ages?
9th of March, 1925, I was born.
1925.
I am, this last March, I'm 87 years old.
Do you reveal your age, Marjorie?
Yep, I'm 82.
82.
Or well, I'll be 82 in August, I'm
No,
sorry.
it's just coming
I'm
out.
81.
Okay. Okay. And you live in Orofino?
Yes.
Okay, tell us about what a little about your family and what brought you to Idaho. You can talk to Pete down there too.
I was born in Idaho. I was born at Emmett, Idaho, 9th of March, 1925, at Emmett.
Huh.
State of Idaho has been my state all the way through my life. I found that the state of Idaho has everything my heart's desire, because some of the other states don't have what we have. And I'm proud of it.
That's good.
Okay? When I went to war in '43, I had to tell some of my comrades and stuff, hey, when are you going to come to the state of Idaho? What's that? I said, that's part of the Union, if you want to know. I said, I'm going to fight for it. I've been fighting for it for all these years and everything. Like I said, the state of Idaho that other states don't have, we have everything here that imaginable. You name one thing that the state of Idaho don't have, there's not very many of them.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Where were you living at that time? In '43 when you...
In '43, right down that street, past the post office.
Oh,
Right down that street. My folks had, I tell you what the story of it is, I better tell you the head part of it, because
yeah.
when I was a baby, born in Emmett, my mother and dad separated because I have a hair rip, my birthmark. And my mother, God rest her soul, she didn't want me at that particular time. I was defective boy. And my dad told me, she said, well, if you don't want him, I'm going to take him. And he raised me. So when I was a baby, I don't realize how long I was, how old I was. We went to Jackson's Hole, Wyoming. My dad worked on a dude ranch over there. I went to school when I got 6, 7, and 8 years over there, grade school. I mean, started school over there. While I was over there, I had 2 operations on my mouth because my mouth was way open, and the doctors over there put it together like it is now. The doctors advised now, he said, don't mess with it out, because he said I would not want to change it one bit, because people are used to seeing me like I am, and so, like I said, if they don't like to watch me, well, then they can turn their head the other way. But this is what I'm going to carry until the day I die. But like I said, 8 years old, I was just a teenager, baby, you might say. Came to this valley because Charlie Timpson, I don't know if you know him or not, he lived down on the street, on the end of the street down there, had offered my dad a job from there to here, shoveling snow in the wintertime. That winter they shoveled snow for $1 a day. What money had, people did have, of course, Circuit City, cameras. I went to school with all the camera kids. And they, they had the cattle and everything like that. Town of New Meadows was a quiet town, a small town, and it was, people knew one another. People could shake their hands with one another, and we knew everybody by name. We had vacant lots. Of course, the houses in the vacant lots, but I used to play in them vacant lots. I could see it in my eyes, the vacant lots next to the old Presbyterian church over here. A big vacant lot. Now there's homes in there. That's true. There's homes down there that my folks had built 2 houses down there. right next door to Johnny Cox. I don't know if you know them or not, but they used to be our neighbor right across, Johnny Cox. If there's any Coxes in town, I don't know. There might be some relatives in there. Then on the other side was Whitrose, Floyd Whitrose, Senior. I went to school with Floyd Whitrose, his boy, at the high school here.
Okay.
Anyhow, and then there was Nicholson, old Ed Nicholson. He was the caretaker of the high school out here. He lived just up the road from us, on the right-hand side. We lived on the left-hand side, going in here. I remember that brick building down there used to be a bank, used to be a post office. Now people are living in it as, I guess, now. There's people living in it now.
Well, there's some living quarters upstairs in
Yeah.
it, yeah.
Well, the people lived upstairs that took care of the bank stuff downstairs.
You remember what year it was you moved to New Meadows?
Well, it was 33.
1933. Yeah.
That was in the good old days. People don't think about the good old days, but I don't think much about the good old days either, because them was the bad years.
So, and do you know how many years you were here?
10 years.
10 years.
I left here in 43, October the 28th, 1943.
Then I had to have lived on the same street as you did. My parents moved over here in 40, lived at Meadows, and they moved into New Meadows in 42. So that would have,
Well-
my name was Rich.
Rich, oh, hey Rich, you had a boy by the name of Rich.
Wayne.
Wayne.
Who you probably would have run around with.
I did. I did.
Ah,
To mention it,
okay,
I did.
okay.
Oh yeah, us kids had a ball. We had a good time here in this valley. We had a makeshift of our stuff that we had to do. Remember Ed Bain here on the corner down here? They had the little garage, you know. His boy Earl Bain Jr., he had that little pickup. He took us around town in the wintertime on that 10-man toboggan. Oh, we had a lot of fun over that thing. Every winter we had that toboggan out. I used to work for the Fays. I used to work for the cameras. I used to make money, 25 cents an hour, but they always put me to work because I was always ready to work, and some of the other guys didn't want to do that. But that was my spending money. And every time they do that, they'd come to me and ask me, "Oh, come on, Kraft, put $1 worth of gas in the car." As we go to Counselor, or go to McCall, or go down to Wiggins, you know. I always had the money.
Do you remember some of the businesses that were on Main Street?
Yes, right on the corner where the grocery store is, used to be that garage. I don't know what the man's name is, but he used to smoke Chesterfield cigarettes because that's what I learned how to start smoking. Because he'd flip his cigarette out and I'd go bum him off the ground. Smoke.
Was it
Bad thing to
Irwin?
do. Huh?
Was the name Irwin?
Yeah,
Irwin Garage.
okay. You got it.
So what else?
Right next door to that was the Fay Poo Hall.
Okay.
Right next to that was some businesses. People lived in right along the street there. The end street down there used to be the bus depot. McDonald's had it then.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that had that fancy penmanship.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that because he always come out and played marbles with us guys. The streets, just as soon as the snow got off in the streets, we'd be out there with the marbles us guys, and all their business people would come out and donate the marbles to us because they liked to see us on the street playing the marbles. You know. And I got pretty good at it. I had jars of marbles, you know. A lot of times they let us win because, you know, for the sake of the kids.
Was the Main Street paved?
No, it was all dirt.
Uh-huh.
You remember when the snow got so deep here? I remember one year when the snow got so deep it was over the fence post. I seen 40 below zero here in this Delta Valley. I used to walk across on the crust.
Yeah.
Some people over here that I used to do errands for, milk the cows and things, and I boarded there to stay there because one of them got real sick and the other one had to have help. And I'd go over there and do all the chores for him. Then I'd walk from there, I'd walk across the frozen field to the high school, go to school in the wintertime.
Yeah.
So what schools did you attend here? Just the
High
one?
school.
Just the high school? And-
4th grade in the Beaumont school right here.
Okay.
But I had to take the 4th grade over again because that was the year that I moved around quite a bit with my family because my dad had a brother move from Nebraska, and he bought some ground up there by Coeur d'Alene, and he had to go up there and they had to build a house up there for that year, for that winter. And so my dad and I and another man went up there and stayed all winter long and built that house for them up there. Of course, they all built together, you know. And I went there part of the year in the 4th grade. Had to walk 2 miles to school, country school, and back again, with 4 of the girls. I have 4 cousins that live up there around Coeur d'Alene. Of course, one of them has passed away, and I don't know the other 3. I've lost count of them, so I don't know. But anyhow, we went to school together up there. Come back down here and went to school here right up part of the 4th grade, but I didn't make it, and so I had to make it over again. So the 4th grade, I think I can't remember just exactly where I went to 4th grade or not. But anyhow, I finally got through that and went on up to the 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th grade.
So getting back to Main Street, where the garage is and you come this way, what businesses do you have?
This side of where the gas station is and everything like that was Witherspoon's Pool Hall. Next door to that was some businesses. Joe Callahan, he had the creamery. Next door to that was shoe shop. Because I remember the shoe shop. I used to come, when I come home from school, come up there and I'd stop in there, and sometimes he would feed me breakfast. And I remember the man, he never used shortening. He'd always used fry his eggs in butter. He always liked to have that creamy butter. He'd get the creamy butter from Joe Callahan. And then from there I'd go to school.
Now, which place was that where you were having breakfast?
Shoe shop.
Shoe shop.
It had to have been where the bank is now, was at one time a bank,
Yeah.
the bank.
There was a
building.
string,
Oh.
like I said, there was a string of businesses along the street
And
here.
it would have been, then Joe's, then the creamery, and
Yeah.
then the next place would have been a shoe shop, correct? Okay,
And he also had a little cafe here.
okay.
I remember, they had a little cafe here.
The name of it was,
I don't remember what the cafe is, but there was a little eating place here on Main Street right
okay,
here.
yeah,
I also remember, we called it the Pine Knot Inn, this cafe.
mhm.
That was our stomping ground, us boys. Your son was in there too, right along with the rest of you. We'd sit in the booth and then have milkshakes or whatever
My
after a ball game.
My brother,
No, your brother.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
your brother.
yeah.
Okay, your brother. Wayne.
So then you remember, was there a service station beside the Pine Knot Cafe?
No, the only one that I can remember is Miller's, across from the
Oh,
high school.
Okay,
I don't remember that little station. Was there a station there? There could have been.
okay. You remember Baines though?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And was the Chevron there?
Well, it could have been a Chevron then. I don't know what the name of what he had, what kind of a Shell, maybe it might have been a Shell service station. I don't know what
I think it was.
name it was. But I do know that it was a garage, and he did sell a bit of gas there, right on the corner right there. And of course, Earl Miller, But right across the house, I still see the houses are still there, the little renters that he used to rent. His wife, boy, she was a nice lady, but boy, she was stern. She was one of those kind of sisters, you know, that you didn't mince words with her because she put you in your place. Us boys was always pretty wary of her. But anyhow, like I said, we got along fine though, you know, as far as that goes.
So what was on the other side of Main Street? You start down on the far end.
Okay,
On the
well,
west
the
end.
post office is now, that was a vacant lot. Right next door to that was a dance hall and a movie house. Fanny Fay was my stepmother. She took care of me as just like one of her own kids because I went to school with all of the boys. See? A face.
Mhm.
Clarence Fay had the pool hall. Right across the street was the movie house. I used to take care of that because Fanny would always tell me, Chris, she says, I can always trust you because you are a good boy. And I know that you would do things like it should be. So she hired me for my tickets. I got all my dance tickets and I got all my show tickets free because I could move the seats to make dance time on Saturday nights, or I could move them back for the show house, see, on the movies, you know. Then I'd build up the big fire in the big furnace in the back there, keep that big fan on, you know, but not heat in there all the time, you know. That was part of my job. I do it. Right next door to that was a small bakery. What? I used to come from home. I used to come in there and I used to help the man fry the maple bars and the donuts. And for my reward, he would used to give me 2 or 3 maple bars and 2 or 3 donuts to take to eat. I'd take them to school and eat them. That was part of my reward for doing that. And farther down, right on the corner down there, this little gal's here that gave me the card that I talked to a while ago, her folks owned that building in the back. They bought that place. But when I was here, that used to be a little service station because you could see the cement deals outside with one of them one-arm gas station pumps
On the corner.
on the corner. And I told her to be sure and keep that there because after all, I said, that was there when I moved there, and I know it was there before I moved there in '33. So you see, it had to be within that 100-year deal. Okay.
So that's Freeman's place he's talking about?
Yeah, I used to,
But who's the woman he's,
well,
Well, her name is this, right here. She's the one that wrote it out. Said her
Anissa
folks-
Qualls, so
Yeah,
her
Oh,
parents,
oh, oh,
her
oh,
parents
yeah,
are the Freemans that
yeah.
live there now.
Yeah, Freeman.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And right across the park from there, that was our diamond for a football field.
Mhm.
And farther down across the street from that road there, I can't remember, there was a car, lengthwise like this, is one of those passenger cars on the train. Was in there and people lived in that, and I think if I remember right, there was another house, a small house right next door to that. But that was all there was there because right next to the railroad was the packing shed. Next to the packing shed was the ice house. Next to the ice house was the pond where they got the ice, and they would transport that ice in the wintertime, cut them bricks, put it into the ice house, and got the sawdust from Tamarack, from the sawmill.
Yeah.
And do you know that Tamarack sawmill has been there over 100 years?
Mhm.
Because it was there when we moved into the valley in '33, because my dad worked there, piling lumber, board at a time at that sawmill.
Yeah.
And the sawmill was down next to the river, down, you know, because they moved the building now
Right.
up on top of the highway.
Yeah.
But it was way down the road, it was right next to the pond. 'cause he used the pond for the dump the logs in.
What was your father's name?
Oliver
Oliver?
Zierlein, that
Zierlein.
was mine.
Okay. Okay.
And he worked there, pot and lumber, board by board on that.
What was your mother's name?
My mother's name she was not here at all.
Okay.
She had married another man by the name of Walker, lived in Klamath Falls, Oregon, and so that part of the family was way gone. We didn't pay much attention to that part, you know. They didn't get in touch with us, and we get in touch with them, and so that was the way that was, you know.
Do you remember the pea sheds?
Yes,
Peas? Where was it located?
that was the pea shed, that was the packing shed,
Okay.
because they raised peas up here on the hillside, next to the hill up here. They had field after field of peas up here.
Really?
I don't remember what year that was, but they still raised them OD peas, and that's why they packed them up.
Where was that now? They
Well, it
raised
was
peas.
over there, someplace past the cemetery. Some of those, I don't know if the Crays or the Brandstutters had anything to do with that. I imagine they did, because that was the prominent families at that particular time. The Hubbards was up around the corner there on Mud Creek. And there was the Cardocks. I forgot to mention the Cardocks. Dan and Bud Cardock, they took care of the ranch on the other side where the Barbacks lived. They bought it. Cardocks lived right across the street from us, from Jeff Rivergoods, because Mother Cardock was another peach. She always took me in as one of her kids, and I was part of the family. Ate the meals in the table, and they had she was a religious sort of a person. She always had a blessing, had beans on the table all the time, and that we didn't have too much food back in them days. But what it was good, you know. Managed to get by. The barter system, you know.
Yeah.
And
So some of that land on that side of the valley was homesteaded by the Rigdons. Do you remember that
Who?
name? Rigdon? And McMahon?
well, it could have been. I consider that name right now does not ring a bell. It could have been there.
Okay.
Do you remember the old family that moved in by the name of Wilsons?
Wilson? There's several Wilsons.
Well, they lived at Old Mill. I mean, Old Town, I mean. And there was the Ballbacks, the old man and his wife, and the two boys and the two girls, Ballbacks. I went to school with Bob and Ruth Ballback, and the other girl, I forgot what her name was, but anyhow, went to school here.
That was where they are, out by the RV park now. Have you been out there? There's a,
Out here.
going out beyond Meadows.
Well, yeah, I have.
Is
That's
that
all.
where Ballbacks were?
Yeah, they had a fox farm there. Did you remember the old folks by the old man? His name was Williamson. Cooner. They called him a Cooner Williamson because he'd been in the army, but he had a fox farm up there on Goose Creek. My brother used to work for him, feed the foxes up there. And did you know that there was another fox farm farther up the canyon? There was three of them together.
There was
And I hear
one
a tale
further
from
up
Glenn
the canyon.
Craddock, he lives right down the street here, right past the Forest Service building. He says out in his backyard, you can still see the silver fox out there. They had it to them moose.
Was it up the canyon or was it on the foothill there? Where,
No, there was three of them. There was up there, you go up around past the Goose Creek and go up around the bend. In that little space in there, there was a small fox farm
Right.
on Goose Creek. Not Goose Creek, but on that creek that comes from up on top of the creek.
Little Goose Creek.
Yeah. Farther on down, there used to be Williamson's. He lived across the river. I had to have a bridge across there to his place. And them white houses that lived next to the hill on the left-hand side coming into town, we lived in one of them houses, and I used to go to that Fremont school there in the, I think, might have been the 5th grade ones out there too. I didn't know. Only in them years, some on in there.
what did you call the school?
Well, it was that schoolhouse
At
up there.
Meadows?
At Old Meadows, Yeah.
Old Meadows, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah?
Do you remember Mrs. Brackett? She was the principal at that school for years.
No, I don't.
After your
Well,
time, maybe?
It could have been, she could have been there because, like I said, you know, names, people changes names and everything, and when you move away, you know, these names finally get so that they get kind of lost in the shuffle, you might say. But, could have been. I know that she'd come out a lot of times and separate Bob and I, because we'd always get into wrestling match to see who was the strongest. Every day we had to get into it. One day I'd win, the next day he'd win, and we'd just toss her in there. We get too strong, and then she'd have to think both of us by the collars and separate us and stuff like that, you know. Anyhow,
Who was that with?
Robert Bobak. Yeah.
Okay.
But get back to the car rocks. Dan never married. He was always a small. He always helped his dad, Dan, out to the mountain, out to the ranch. The family moved in here. They had a house here on that wide street next to the railroad. I called it the railroad street because it had houses along there, see? I mean, we lived there right along, I lived in Jeff Rivergood's house, the first house that we moved into, after we moved out of the shanty, down on the flat. When we came in the flat, it was in the fall of '33. It was still summer. But that house we lived in, because that was the only house that we could get to move into from Jackson's Hole, Wyoming. And I prayed out in the dirt, outside. We had to pack our water from uptown, because we didn't have no wells down there, no water down there. We had to pack all the water and everything. Right down the flat was the stockyards. Stockyards. Sucasee used to bring their cattle and ship their cattle out of the stockyard there. I don't know how far that track went. Clear past the new school. It's still, that track went way out there because they had the cattle cars in there, and the train would move them cars as they was loading them. They'd have to move them, you see. So that track goes quite a ways out past the new school and everything. There has to be a mark there someplace where the end of the track was. Anyhow, I just used to go down there and climb the rails and watch them load them cattle up there. Use them big long hot shots, you know, moving them cattle up, and them old bulls, they just bellowed right around when they did that. Then, do you remember the Galloping Goose? You remember the Galloping Goose?
I don't remember it,
I
no,
do.
but I remember hearing about it.
Yeah. My husband used to ride it. To
I did too.
To his grandparents' home. No.
I did too. I used to walk up that railroad track to the mouth of it when he come in. As a conductor, an engineer, he'd always smile and grin and laugh. He said, "I suppose you guys want to ride." "Yeah, give us a ride." We get into the engine room, you know, and go right down, and boy, we was big shots because we was coming in with a train. That 2 miles coming in.
Yeah.
He'd come in here like this, and then he'd back in right into the next to the depot, you know.
Oh, okay.
And they had everything on that Galloping Goose. They had the little passenger section, they had the cargo, they had the mail section, and they had the refrigeration section, and they had the engine section. They had everything in that little Galloping Goose. It was a pretty good size, though. And he stopped at every Jackwater town. He stopped every town to Weezer. They done that every day, except Sunday. But Monday morning, look out. It's here on time, and it was coming up to mine on Monday morning. I used to fish Mud Creek. Didn't have the fancy poles we have nowadays. I had a willow pole. I'd cut me a willow pole with a pocket knife, put a string on the end of it, with a hook on it. And I'd catch my trout and everything up Mud Creek. I'd go up Mud Creek, you know, come down with 4 or 5 fish or something I'd catch, you know. I'd have them all strung up and everything like that, and I'd walk around the bend. And I said to myself, I said, you know, I don't have to go home with these fish. I give these fish to the engineer on the train, because he'd always come back, because I could always hear them coming, because they always tooted their horn up away from the getting in, you know, that's no. And so I'd hold him up to him, and yeah, he'd shake it, and so he got water my fish that way. I didn't have to bring any fish home. Was that thing. So I fished that creek. I fished Goose Creek. There's a salmon river down here. Do you know where Mud Lake is? I fished in that. Some nice trout in there. Well, I remember right, there was some nice trout in there. I don't know if there's any more or not. But I used to go with my bicycle. I used to ride bicycle down to Zim Springs. Wayne might have went with us too. I bet you did. Because this guy used to go in the wintertime down the highway on our bicycles and stuff. Walk across there and go swimming in Zim Springs. All day long, we're feeding that hot water. Come out, freeze, get walk across the snowbanks, come into town. But that was good, clean sportsmanship, because we had a good time here. I had a good time in this valley. There was no bad occasions here in this town, because everybody seemed to me like they loved everybody, they got along with everybody. This was a quiet town, you know. And I hate to see this town. I've been hearing stories about New Meadows that he wants to blow away. Hey, I said, no way. Because do you know, there's only 3 ways in and there's only 3 ways out of this town. And you're right in the center point of north and south, right here. You got to make a name of yourself right here, because after all, people's got to come through this town in order to get to any other town. This is it.
What do you remember about the businesses on the highway from Bain's Garage going north? The hotel was there,
The
right?
hotel was there.
Which is
The hotel has always been there. As far as I can remember, it was way there before we moved in here. I don't remember who owned it, but I do know that it was in business then,
As a hotel.
as a hotel.
It was the home of the railroad magnate originally. They had a
Okay.
big hotel that was south of the intersection there.
Well, that's something new to me,
That
because I
burned.
didn't realize that too, you know. Why it's a fancy building now, so much, all that fancy work and everything. I can understand now, yeah, okay. I learned something there, honey. Didn't I?
Was there any other businesses along that stretch?
I don't think so. There might have been a home or two, but I can't remember that.
Okay.
No. But there had to be though, wouldn't it?
Well, I really don't remember that very well.
Yeah, I see. I know there was Baines right there on the
There
corner of the
was.
hotel.
There was
I'm pretty sure that there must be,
Buffalo's owned a business on that stretch, I think where the Meadows Motel sits right now. Do you remember Buffalo's? That was their
yeah.
family. I
Well,
don't
there
know who
was a
was
service
before
station
them.
there. Remember, there was a service station there. That motel that we stayed in now has been there for years and years and years, because Schaefer's had a little service station there, convenience store in there, and they run that motel right there.
Shavers?
Schaefer's.
I didn't know about. I knew they were on Main Street.
Well, they had that business over there, because I remember there was 2 guys broke into their establishment and took off out of their goodies and everything like that, and they caught them people between Goose Creek Grade and McCall, and one of the sheriff's department had to shoot that guy, and he shot him dead. And that was a particular day that we had to go there to McCall for a football game, and we didn't play very good that year, because we saw that dead body over there, shot. So we didn't have very good recollection of that. But anyhow, no, it was Schaefer's little service station there. Not Kenny, not here on the corner. Johnson, used to be Kenny Johnson's. the old man, Kenny Johnson.
Mhm.
I don't know who owns it now,
Well, somebody different, but
but it's the old man, Ken Johnson. He was the one that had the service station here on the corner.
yeah.
He was one of the business people on this side of the street that always used to come out once in a while and play marbles with us because we was always playing the main street and not around the corner, you might say, you know what I'm saying. But he did play marbles with us. And he did associate with the people in town because he was the businessman and stuff.
His grandson lives up on in the foothills there now, close to the
Grandson.
ranch they had.
Well, and then the other service station you were talking about, or convenience store, Schaefer's
Yeah,
or Shavers?
Sheffer's. It seemed like it was Sheffer's or something like that. Anyhow, it was
Schiffler?
Sheffer, yeah.
Schiffler,
Yeah,
that might be.
yeah. That's what it was. Because I remember there was they had two kids going to school here.
Hmm.
I can't remember what their names were, but they had two children. They had Evans run the train depot. They lived upstairs. They had two children going to school here too. Like I said, you know,
So he was the station master?
Yeah.
Okay, and they lived upstairs. And,
yeah.
yeah.
Cliff Evans,
Huh?
Clifford Evans.
Yes. Yeah.
And his wife's name was Marie.
Could have been. Could have been. Yeah. And right there where the senior center is, right there across the street, is the mill site. And this other gal, she told me about that they have a few people come there. That's a nice place. We have one in North Phoenix the same way too. They said they charge $6 here, but because of such a small number, that all you people ought to go down there and eat that good food. Do you?
Occasionally.
Oh, good. Well, we have it down at Orfino down there. We have it on a Tuesday and on a Friday, $3. And you get the bell and smell for $3. Then the first Friday of every month, they have the birthday table. What they have a magazine, but what they call Golden Times. With all their birthdays and all their pictures of their names, you know, and their birthdays, when they was born and everything.
Mhm.
Once a month, they have that birthday table, cream and ice cream and cake.
Yeah, that's
And it's beautiful. And we have, how many do we think we had, honey? Remember? Probably around about 75 or 80,
75, 80.
all the time, you know.
Yeah.
They come and go, you
A few times when I was working there, they had 100.
know.
Wow.
She used to
It's
sit at
a
the desk.
capacity of 100.
What was your maiden name?
Myers,
Myers? Where did you grow up?
mostly California.
Okay.
I was born in Parma, but I was raised in California. And I came up here to Pierce,
Pierce. Okay.
and bought a home.
Okay.
And I met her at that senior center.
No,
Great.
it's pretty cool.
Pretty good.
Well, what do you remember about transportation in the valley when you came here? You had,
We didn't have much transportation. We had the dirt roads and everything. There was a very few cars. Remember the speed limit was 45 miles an hour. Very few cars. Cameras, they had cars because they had it extra money than what we did. We had, for our transportation, we had a Moderator Ford touring car. That's what we used to go down to Weezer. We go down to Weezer maybe, I don't know, maybe once or 3 times every year. We'd stock up on stuff, but yet we had a good Schaefer's. We had a good store here by the name of Schaefer's. Good store. Schaefer's has got the store up to McCall now, I guess, from what I understand, or something familiarized with had everything here. They had, but But all the other service stations and everything always had a few goodies, like groceries and stuff like that, you know. So you had plenty to pick from different places, you know. No, the transportation, like I said, it'd probably take you about all day to get down to Weezer because you couldn't drive very fast.
Well, you said you went to McCall for a football game. What kind of a vehicle did you drive up there in? Were they
Well,
cars?
they
They didn't
had
have a
the
bus.
They didn't have no buses, they had individual cars. I think it was, the families had the cars and take us up there because they would have to take the team up there, you know, stuff like that. No buses at that time.
So how did food and,
And if we went down to Wiggins, we had to go by car.
okay. But
And the same way as my car, I had to go by car, a counselor by car.
did supplies come in on the train here, or did they
A lot of
mostly
trains
come
come
in
in,
by
well, no,
truck?
they had the trucking system, you
Okay.
know, from out of Boise,
Okay.
you know, most of them were out of Boise. Eddie's Bakery, remember Eddie's Bakery?
Oh, yeah.
Used to come in here all the time, and you always used to get Eddie's bread, Eddie's pastry, Eddie's donuts, all that stuff, you know, from Eddie's out of Boise. And I remember, what was it that, the ice cream used to come from Weezer. A lot of the ice cream used to come on the Galloping Goose up here. They'd take it off and put it in the stores and everything. Because they didn't have refrigeration cars, trucks by that time. Just ordinary trucking dealers. So a lot of the stuff had to come in by refrigeration. And anyhow, you had the ice cream, you had the popsicles and the ice cream and the bars and all this kind of stuff like that, you know. And Idaho potato chips. Remember the big bags of Idaho potato chips? You don't have them anymore because they don't taste the same as them Idaho potato chips. Those potato chips would melt right in your mouth, and they had such a good flavor to them. Nowadays, they don't have taste to them at all. I like them, but still, not like Idaho potato chips out of Boise. Made them so good.
So
I
the,
got
the Galloping Goose had a section that was cold,
Yeah,
you know, or refrigerated,
No.
and that's how a lot of the
Because
refrigerated.
Joe Cahill used to ship a lot of the cream and stuff down to the creamery down there at Weezer from here, from his shop, ship it out there because it had to be refrigerated because as he went back down to Weezer, they had to stop at each town, pick up stuff, and by the time it got down to Weezer, if it was out in the open, it probably was sour. So they had to have refrigeration. I don't know what kind of refrigeration they had, if it had ice in it or not, I don't know. But it was cold in there to keep everything cold. I never was inside that I remember to do it, but I'm sure back in them days, they probably had containers inside where they could put ice in, big blocks of ice to keep it cold, you know. It's the same way with these, when they packed these peas and everything. They had these refrigerated cars, they had the ice down inside, and you put the blocks of ice right down so that the cold would mitigate inside of the car itself, you know. So it was cold all the time inside, and that's what they packed the peas into. If I remember right, they shipped all that stuff back east, those peas and stuff went back east or whatever it was, you know, in them refrigerator cars. And they was real short compared to the ones nowadays. The refrigerated cars nowadays, man, they're real long, you know. That, to me, they're about a quarter of a mile long. Back there, they was real short, not too big. Same way as the cattle cars. Because if you remember right, you could only keep it probably, 50 to 60 cows in a boxcar. Because they didn't want to crowd them too heavy, you know, and stuff. So they're real small and everything like that. Down below the depot, that whole front there was wide open. I think part of that, if I remember right, was part of they had swamp or something in there, if I remember right. anyhow, they had to fill that in before Morgan moved his logging outfit in there and stuff like that.
Sure.
I remember when they moved in. I remember when the McGregor from Donnery and Cascade moved their outfit in. They moved out over there. That's all new addition. I took my wife around there to see if there was any more of them old boxcars, the bunkhouses that they lived in. I don't see one anymore, but they used to be here once in a while. But they got new houses and good homes down there now. They got rid of them. But you see, they moved over in bunkhouses over there, in that new section over there, next to the railroad.
Mm-hmm.
So see, they
Yeah,
used to come into the valley and they come around and they swing around here like this, and then back in to the depot. See, so they can be headed out, you know. You see. Then here, when they come out here like this, instead of going up there, they'd come out here and go right straight, and they'd have to change the deal in order to get out, to get on the main line, you know. See, that's the way they came in. See, each one of these had a, you know, you change the track, you know.
Yeah, the switch.
Switch, yeah, the switchman, yeah.
Okay,
And
so
there's
they
three
did their
switches.
turning around at that end, not out past the
No.
stockyards. It was up at
They had
this
to do it
end.
up there.
Okay, because they
Yeah.
pull in going south and then back into the
Uh-huh.
depot.
Because when they left here, they always left with the engine ahead of time. If they did otherwise, they'd have to go backwards up there all the time, you see. And they always wanted to be sure and find out in front, because back in them heydays, we had all kinds of game and deer and stuff. And it was at night, you know, if they traveled at night, which they did a lot of times, it'd be dark. They'd have somebody'd have to see the light in front of the, you know, the caboose and stuff. Try to see anything, rocks on the trees, sometimes a bulb on the track and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
When I came here in '33, all around these mountains was the best stand, it was more stand of yellow pine timber you ever seen. Timber was bigger than this. Stand up here just as tall and straight and nice as could be. Yellow pine. You got the ponderosa pine, but I'm talking about the yellow pine. There's a few yellow pine yet. They're entirely different. They're a pine tree, but yet it's still, the bark is more yellow than the ponderosa pine. Up there, you got the white fir, you got the red fir, the big old the big old Douglas fir between here and McCall. Up there on the divide. Biggest Douglas fir you ever seen, just as nice and straight, good grain timber you ever seen. Of course, like I said, now it's all gone. They logged that country off. They logged this all off years ago. Because my brother and dad used to crosscut, working for Boise Cascade when they cut a lot of this timber, and they shipped this timber out down to Emmett, in the big sawmill. Council had Boise Cascade too.
Boise Payette.
Huh?
It was Boise Payette at that
Boise
time.
Payette.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a lot of tamarack or larch over?
Yeah. There's
over
still
on
a
the
few, I
side?
noticed there's still a few standing over there right now. Some dead ones. In our part of the country down there, people, they go for them tamarack because it's a hot wood. It lasts a long time and it puts out a lot of heat. But there's one thing about that stuff. It burns your stove up. It makes your stove too hot, and it causes your stove to just, you know, just burn it up. The metal.
That's all we burn is tamarack.
Good, but be careful with it, because
Yeah.
you get that creosote in the chimney and
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I burnt that for years up there too, but I go so now that we burn wood myself, the wife and I, we burn wood ourselves. We burn red fir and white pine. We mixed it together, and that way the white pine helps clean out the chimneys. The red fir is heat in itself. I mean, it's just as good, sometimes even better than what tamarack is. It's not near as hot, but yet it still puts out the heat. And that's what you're after, is the heat and stuff. No, there used to be a big stand of tamarack on that hillside there, and I know that there's still a few of them standing there yet. There's dead ones over there because, like I said, it'd be too hard to get out and get them. The only way you could get out and do that is a logger with a helicopter, bring a whole tree out at a time with a helicopter and bring it out and make wood out of it. That's the only way you can get it out of there. I don't think you'd want to pack it out of there on your back, because them things are pretty heavy.
Were they cutting many rails and fence rails and shakes out of the tamarack back then? Or do you remember?
I don't think so. They always made the rails and the shakes and everything out of cedar.
Yeah.
There is a cedar. There's some cedar up there. That's what they call the western type cedar.
Right.
And
Especially up north.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got them
Up
up
in
north.
your country now.
Yeah. But you have a few up here in this country too. You got cedar up here too,
Mhm.
but not like we have in our country.
Mhm.
But they make the rails, fence posts, shakes,
You're right.
all that kind of stuff out of cedar nowadays. And then they stain it, and that keeps the wood a lot longer when it's stained than it is ordinary like this, you see.
Do you remember if there were any small mills in the valley right here?
Yes. White's, of course White, his folks, when they moved in there, they had a small sawmill right up here on the hill as you go out of town, toward the dump now. I guess that's what they call the landfill now again. If I remember right, they had a small mill there, just run by an engine. Then they had a sawmill down there by, they called it Strawberry, down below.
Oh, Strawberry, yeah.
Down there below the Lost Lake Reservoir turnout, down there they had a sawmill in there. They cut lumber down there in that little vicinity right there,
Yeah.
Of course they had Brown's Lumber up here, sawmill in Fayette Lakes.
Right.
And I imagine if they got down in the bottom of that thing, they'd find a lot of logs there yet, sunk. In that.
They have, yeah.
Yeah. Then they had Horseshoe Bend down here, Horseshoe Bend. Council had a sawmill there. New Meadows never did have a sawmill.
Yeah. Just White's out here
Yeah,
was the only.
That's all the sawmills that I remember around here. Of course, they had the sawmill there at Cascade, Boise Cascade.
Well, when you were a boy, do you remember the Indians coming into the valley or passing through the valley?
They would pass through.
Mhm.
We had a lot of controversy about that a long time ago. We used to fish, my brother and I, and family used to fish a little salmon. And we used to go down there fishing all the time. Of course, we had very seldom would we see a Nez Perce Indian up here fishing in the stream. Only down there the Rapid River. He claims that he's allowed to fish down there all the time because he's allowed a certain amount of fish. Go up Rapid River to Circus C hatchery. It's all right if they want to get that many fish and everything, but they get so aggressive at times. I got to have my quota. I got to have this. I got to have it, And they knock you off from your rock or whatever. But like I said, years ago, they used to roam through here, just like on horseback and stuff like that, and go to different places to get space or food or camas roots and stuff. And they'd probably fish in Fayette Lakes up here, and stuff like that, and camp around that campground and stuff up there,
Do you
And
ever
they roamed this country,
Do you ever remember the fish in the Little Salmon River in the valley here?
Yeah.
The salmon coming up here?
Uh-huh. If they could get through the falls. At one time years ago, before they could put that fish rider in there, you see, that fish rider brought them all up here because they spawn in some of these distributaries up here.
Okay.
But
So that fish ladder was
that
in.
fish ladder is not in use anymore. I don't
No.
think it's gone, and so them steelhead and the salmon cannot come up there because them rocks are just too steep for them.
Yeah.
But they can jump a long ways.
Oh,
See,
yeah.
to get up on top of the rock. That's the way a lot of them do, you know. You see.
But the river, or the highway must have been changed
I think it
a
is.
little
It's-
bit.
Yeah.
But when you were a kid, there were salmon here in the valley.
Come up here in the valley.
Yeah.
I never did catch any, but we used to watch them in the creek over here.
Yeah.
You know, we used to watch them.
Huh.
And I imagine if I could recollect, maybe I got down in the water with them and tried to catch them babies. You know, but some of them salmon got pretty good size. They've been part of these bigger than this table.
Yeah.
Of course, anymore they're about like this. You know, they're getting smaller all the time. It seems like, you know. I remember going fishing up there on Beaver, what's it called? They called it Beaver Creek, I guess. That was the North Fork of the Weezer River out of Tamarack. When high water mark would come up from Weezer, from the local Weezer River, they'd come up through there and come up into there because we used to get that jack salmon.
Oh,
All them teeth would come up here like this, you know, the mouth would come up, and the teeth would come up like this, and you stick your hand down in there, and boy, them teeth was real sharp. You had to be awfully careful. But them things measured long. We got, I think, 4 or 5 of them that day. We stood up here like this, and the tails would run the ground. We had to raise them up on the ground. Big ones back in them days.
Huh.
But you had to graft them. You couldn't fish them for hook and line. We had to hook them with the grafting hook.
oh yeah.
And a lot of times it was out of the water because back in them days, depression days, food was hard to come by, and so fish was part of the diet. You could.
What do you remember about medical people here?
Oh, Dr. McCumbers,
McCumbers?
he lived the council. He was a doctor. He had a little office here. He'd come up every once in a while and have the medical supply. There was, what was it, one time, oh yeah, a little, wasn't a pharmacy, but it was a
Drugstore?
drugstore here in town, too. That was in there too, yeah. On this side of the street, I think.
Right across the street from us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right, yeah. There was a lot of houses in here, a lot of businesses in here. Like I said, remember me when you're talking and everything like this, some of these things are coming into view now because before I kind of missed out on them. But it was a busy little town because the ranchers all had cattle, and they was farmers and ranchers and stuff, you know. There was Wisdom. What was his? Howard Wisdom. What was the Wisdom?
There was a Howard Williams with Hazel Wisdom that had a beauty shop.
Yeah, they had a booty shop. Yeah, that's right, Wisdom, Hazel, yeah. Marvin, Yoakum.
Oh.
Used to be right next door to us at the house that we lived down in the first house we moved into. Jeff Revengood's house.
Okay.
Be our next door neighbor down there on the side. Right across the street was the house of Carlock's. Mother Carlock was around. I went to school with the boys, but I also stayed all night at their house. She put me to bed and she spanked me when I had it coming. She fed us beans and everything was real nice because she was my stepmother and she treated us all alike, you know, and everything. Just like growing up family, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, Dan and Ed Carlock, they're both gone now for morphine. I went to Ed Carlock's funeral when he passed away.
My oldest sister was married to Glenn Carlock.
They living over here yet?
Viola was her name. She was a year older than Wayne.
Yeah?
They married, had 2 children, and divorced.
Oh, yeah.
He remarried
Okay.
Naomi, and she lives in the 2-story house just.
It's a White House.
Mm-hmm. That's
Oh,
where
where they live.
Carlocks
Uh-huh.
lived at that time.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Oh, I guess Glenn, he's the only one that swept.
Yes.
Except
Glenn,
the two
no,
girls.
Glenn passed
Glenn.
away.
Oh, he did? When did he do that?
About a year ago?
Yeah.
Are we running out of film?
Yes.
Well, you got, I think we got it all
We
set.
got pretty much all of it. I think we got pretty much all of it, yes.
Very good.
Oh.
Well, thank you very much.
The little pranks, Halloween pranks that us guys used to do. The wagon that we put up on top of the school up here, I think Wayne must have had something to do with that too, because us 6 of us boys would always chum around together.
He was full
Put
of
that
us.
wagon up there on top of that school for Halloween. Next day, we had to go up there the next day and take it back down again. Oh. Then the next day, we had to go around and pick up the toilets that we tipped over and the rotten eggs. Oh, we used to save back the rotten eggs, chickens, you know, the rotten eggs. Throw them rotten eggs at everybody. Oh, that was a mess. Well, us kids used to do those. But it was the times, you know, that we had to do with what we had. We didn't have much, but what we did, we utilized it. Behave yourself.
Yeah.
Sit down. She was real firm like that. But deep down in her heart, she had a heart of gold. That
Yes.
woman, she was a sweetheart, you know, as far as that goes. But she hated to see anybody stand on the outside in the wintertime cold, like I used to say, get in here. She'd send us in there, and we'd sit down by the fire, and we'd behave ourselves, because we didn't dare do anything wrong. So we sit there and behave ourselves. But anyhow, she was that way. And then she'd sell popcorn. Sometimes, if she had a few bags of pop left over and didn't buy anybody, then she would give the popcorn away to us kids. We didn't have popcorn, bags of popcorn and things like that, you know. Because she didn't want to have anything to go to waste.